Hello folks. I'm going to draw this out. I hope you guys can see it. I'll draw it out on a sheet of paper, do it a rudimentary way, like I would do it if I was just talking to you right here with me. Anyway, this is the let's do it like this. This is the astrological circle, I guess you'd call it. Let's see. Okay, so in astrology you have 12 signs. Then you got Cancer down here on the bottom, and that's a cardinal sign. Okay, so there are three types of signs. You have first mutable, then fixed, 1, 2, fixed, then 3 is cardinal sign, not cardinal. Okay, so you got Cancer, and then you've got Gemini, which is mutable. Okay, then you've got Taurus, which is fixed. It always goes mutable, fixed, cardinal. And you've got Aries, which is cardinal. Okay, hopefully it don't smudge here, but it's always mutable, fixed, cardinal in that order, and then it resets. Mutable, fixed, cardinal, then it resets. Okay, then you got Pisces, which is mutable. And you got Aquarius, which is fixed. So if you can see that. And up here you got Capricorn, which is cardinal. Okay, and then it starts back over here in Sagittarius. And I'm not going to draw all the rest of them because it's not necessary for this particular sermon, but Sagittarius is mutable. Okay, hopefully this don't smudge too bad. But anyway, it's Gemini. It starts in Gemini. We'll start this in Gemini. It's mutable, fixed, cardinal. Mutable, fixed, cardinal. Okay, so, and at the end of, Cancer here, it switched back to mutable, fixed, cardinal. Then at the end of Aries up here, it switched back to mutable, fixed, cardinal. Okay, and then at the end of Capricorn, which is Sagittarius is right here, but at the end of Capricorn, it will switch back mutable, fixed, cardinal, keeps going around. So anyway, since we have three signs here, what that means is that these are all connected essentially. Imagine these as one, and imagine these as one. Okay, three different signs, but each one set of signs. Okay, then history as we know it, recorded history roughly, depending on how you look at it, is 6,000. We have 6,000 years of recorded history, basically, according to the way people look at the Bible. Okay, we'll just take their word for it. So anyway, that puts us, if we're in Aquarius, and we go back 2,000 years to Pisces, 2,000 years to Aries, and then 2,000 years back to Taurus. So, or the beginning of Taurus. Okay, so that puts us right here. That's the beginning of Genesis, the Bible, essentially. And that is the Garden of Eden. Garden of Eden. Okay, all right. So, what you have is you have at the end of Gemini and the beginning of Taurus. Because Taurus runs from here to here, and Gemini runs from here to here. At the cusp of Gemini and Taurus, which is right here, you have the Garden of Eden. Okay, so what happens is we know the Garden of Eden story. The Garden of Eden story was that they were in this garden. They were not supposed to eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And if they ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, then their eyes were opened. They ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and then their eyes were opened, and they became as gods, knowing good from evil. Okay, but so anyway, God's out there, and he's like, don't eat from this tree, and then the serpent's like, yeah, eat from this tree. You won't surely die. You'll just become as gods, knowing good and evil, basically. Short version. Okay, so that's right here at Gemini and Taurus. So what that was Gemini and Taurus. Gemini, at that point, was essentially the God way of looking at things. And Taurus, moving forward at that time, was the serpent way of looking at things. Okay, so anyway, of course, we know the story. They ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and they needed a sacrifice. The next thing was that they had to sow fig leaves. That they realized they were naked, and strange things started happening. And then they're like, okay, we need a sacrifice now. So anyway, so they needed a sacrifice, and what did they? Actually, this line needs to go up to the end of Aries here. My mistake. Everything from Gemini here to the end of Aries is your 1, 2, 3. Okay, the beginning of Pisces and the end of Aries right here. Okay, so anyway, but these guys down here, they ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, realized they needed a sacrifice. So what did they start doing? They started sacrificing basically two things primarily, as far as I understand, which was bulls and sheep. Okay, now why did they sacrifice bulls and sheep? I think probably what was going on was because the zodiac was supposed to be the first Bible. The idea was that they were probably just me, but they were probably reading astrology. They were probably reading the stars. So that's why they decided to sacrifice bulls and sheep. Because if you'll show it down here, wifey, the age of Taurus is the age of the bull, and then Aries is the sheep or the lamb. Okay. So, or the ram. Really, it's a ram, but I put sheep. So anyway, so what happened was they started sacrificing bulls and sheep because they were probably reading astrology, just guessing, and they realized that they were getting ready to go into the age of Taurus, which is this 2,000 years right here. And then they realized that to finish up the whole age entirely, they would have to go all the way to the end of Aries, which was up here. Okay, so they needed to go through 2,000 years of Taurus and then 2,000 years of Aries to finish up what they had started, or what they had started here. So they sacrificed bulls and sheep because Aries is the lamb, the sheep, Taurus is the bull. Okay, so they sacrificed and what they were doing was they were the sacrifice was supposed to be just a representation, or not really a symbol maybe, but a full-on essentially representation of what was to come that would fix the situation that they had kind of screwed up, if you want to look at it that way, which you could look at it that way or no, but that was the Piscean way of looking at it, I suppose, is, hey, whenever they eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, they had to have a sacrifice. Things started happening to where they had to have a sacrifice. So anyway, so the sacrifice was, if you want to put it up here, the sacrifice was, the ultimate sacrifice for the whole age was at the end of Aries and the beginning of Pisces, when everything switches all over again, from the 1, 2, 3 to 1, 2, 3 again, the ultimate sacrifice for the Garden of Eden situation was the Lamb of God, essentially, or Jesus, essentially. Okay, so the ultimate lamb, the ultimate sheep at the end of Aries, in the beginning of Pisces. Okay, so they knew. So until the actual lamb, the real lamb, could come, well, they were sacrificing just the animal, the sheep, to in reference essentially to knowing that one day, 4,000 years from then, that the real lamb would come and sort out the whole tri-age. Okay, which is exactly what Jesus did. Jesus sorted out the Garden of Eden condition. That's denominational Christianity 101. Jesus came and sorted out the problem in the Garden of Eden, right? Okay, so anyway, so the lamb, the ultimate Aries ram sheep came right here and sorted out this problem back here, essentially. It's the concept. Okay, so now I told you all that to tell you this. This was not what I was really what I wanted to talk about, but I had to tell you that to tell you what I'm getting ready to tell you. Now, before I move on, Jesus was at the cusp of Aries and Pisces. So what did Jesus do? Jesus was the Lamb of God. He was the ultimate sacrifice to solve the problems. Okay, you can just leave it down here if you want, Wesley. Okay, and so anyway, he was the Lamb of God, the sheep, and then, or the Aries, and then he also was what? A fisherman. He was, turned all the fish. They need the fishes in the loaves. So everything was about fish, short version. Okay, so that meant that he was the lamb finishing up the age of Aries, but he was the fish going into Pisces. And Pisces is what? A fish. That's what it is in astrology. So that's why all that meant that. Okay, there used to be these symbols on cars everywhere that had said, I'm not going to be able to write it all out, but it had a fish and it said Christianity in it. So the age of Christianity, or the age of the church ages, which is the age of Pisces, is symbolized as the fish. So sheep ends here, fish begins here. Jesus is cusp of both, so he's like a fish-lamb combination of sorts. Okay, so anyway, then that gets us up to right here, which is the cusp of Aquarius and Pisces, which is where we are at right now. Okay, now it had been said in times past in the, as far as I can recall, it was a pretty common theme in the days of the Third Coming, that we were in the Garden of Eden condition again. Okay, whenever we went into our just recent journey into the age of Aquarius. Okay, so what you have here is, see down here, it was the mutable Gemini, the cusp of mutable Gemini and of Taurus and of fixed Taurus. So the cusp of mutable and fixed down here that brought on the first Garden of Eden. Well, it probably wasn't the first, but it was the first as far as we can remember. And then up here what you have is so it's mutable leads into fixed. The cusp of mutable and fixed, Garden of Eden. Okay, up here it's the same thing. Mutable, the cusp of mutable and fixed, which is Aquarius, the cusp of Aquarius and Pisces, leads into Garden of Eden, the next Garden of Eden condition, which the cusp of Aquarius and Pisces is the third coming message. So the Garden of Eden condition returned, or as I will call it, the Garden of Eden 2. Okay, so now what do we have here in this second Garden of Eden? We have the exact same condition. We have essentially science versus religion. Aquarius is essentially science, and Pisces, the old church ages, is basically religion. Okay, so what you've got is you've got the same condition here. It's God versus the serpent, and God is saying, don't eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and the serpent's saying, no, go ahead and eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. You won't surely die. It will just, you will be, realize that you're all gods knowing good from evil, essentially. And that's exactly what we have now. Is we have the message people, for example, the message pastors are essentially are the God aspect of it, and they're all saying message pastors, denominational church pastors, the whole thing, anything the age of Pisces essentially is opposed to the scientific age, humanitarian age of Aquarius by nature, because the fixed and the mutable are the two signs that are opposed in a way, and cardinal, and as far as I can tell, the cardinal sign is in between the two. It's neither fixed nor mutable, because mutable is kind of like flexible essentially, and fixed is a solid position. So, and then cardinal is neither one essentially. That's the way I take it. So anyway, so we get up here, and and what you got now is in this Garden of Eden 2, or the returned Garden of Eden condition, you've got all the church age people that are saying, don't you eat from this modern science and things like the third coming message and all this and that. And then you got over here Aquarius side of it is saying, yeah, we got to have science, and science is going to fix everything essentially. And then we got the third coming message, and you'll realize that you're all gods, and you don't need a message church pastor to tell you to take all your tithes and be Lord over you, be God over you essentially. You realize that you are God if you eat from this Aquarius message, which, if you are a third coming believer, then that's what happened to you. You have eaten from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Because if you ate the third coming message, then what it did for you was it made you essentially a God. That was the whole point. It was that God was not up in the sky, the doty God up in the sky. You were God, essentially. And right and wrong is there's a totally, after you've eaten from the third coming message, you have a totally different view of right and wrong and holiness and all that. So once you've eaten from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, or the Aquarius message essentially, then you have you've eaten from the tree. You know you are God's. All the third coming people now, they know that they are God essentially. And that the old holiness message is just doesn't have much hold on them anymore, because they realize good and evil themselves. Okay. So anyway, so that's what happened. Okay. Now, then once you get over into Aquarius, so we finished up Pisces and we got to the cusp of Aquarius and Pisces here at the second Garden of Eden. Then what happens is Aquarius is the total opposite of Pisces. So, Aquarius is the science version of everything. And what you've got is you've got, they believe that science has got all the answers. And I listen to them all the time, and be going down the road listening to radio or something, and they'll have some science for your life or something, and they'll talk about this or that, and they say, well, science proved this and science proved that. And I'm like, yeah, well, I've heard this before. Religion used to know everything. So now they claim that, well, science knows everything. Oh, well, this scientific research, buddy, we know everything by this, right? Yeah, well, it's nothing but the same thing over again. All it is religion in opposite form, because it used to be back here in the church ages that religion knew everything and science didn't know nothing. Now over here in Aquarius, it's that science knows everything and religion don't know nothing. So we didn't solve any problems. We just come over here and created some new problems for ourselves, essentially, because that's what happened back here. They had the problem of being essentially blissfully ignorant of anything, and then they ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil in the first garden, and then they weren't blissfully ignorant anymore. They were enlightened, but enlightened has its own problems. Then they realized, oh, well, we're naked, and we got to start sowing fig leaves, and we got to do this and that. Then they realized they had to have a sacrifice. Okay, so this has kind of been my message for a long time now, is to try to get people to recognize that they need a sacrifice, essentially, that they're naked, and that this Age of Aquarius message has created a few problems. Everybody thinks it's the greatest thing ever, but the Enlightenment, and it for a while, even for me, it was. But I began to realize that we're going to need essentially a modern sacrifice. Go figure, right? We're in the second Garden of Eden, so after the second Garden of Eden, we've eaten from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, the third coming message. Then we realized that we are gods, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, but we need a sacrifice. There's problems here. Okay, this is not going to be all just hunky-dory. The best way I know to describe it is, this is the way I look at it, is that in the age of Pisces, whenever I was down in the message church, for example, I was blissfully ignorant of anything. I was happy, but I was ignorant. I didn't know anything. All I knew was just listen to my message lords and pastors and gods and whatnot. And then I come over here, and I ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. I ate the third kingdom message, and I got over here, and then I wasn't ignorant anymore. I had been enlightened to essentially what they had been messing me over on, and now I'm mad. now I'm mad about the fact that hey, they took advantage of me for all those years, and I was just blissfully ignorant to it and just kept paying them tithes and blah 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 blah. Now I come over here and I'm completely enlightened to it, but now I'm mad about it. So so anyway, that's just kind of a simple example. I ain't saying I'm exactly mad about it. It's just not how things go. You have to go this way. But that's just a little bit of an example of it creates some problems. It's not all hunky-dory. And that's what I've been trying to tell everybody, is that Aquarius has created a few problems. So now I'm going to tell you that what you need is you need a sacrifice. Because down here, they were reading astrology and realized that what kind of sacrifice they needed, and that they needed a sacrifice first and foremost, and what kind of sacrifice that they needed. Okay, so here's what I'm going to tell you. We now realize that we need a sacrifice. So, what do we need to sacrifice? Well, how did they figure out that they needed to sacrifice bulls and sheep? The same, because they must undoubtedly have been reading astrology. So I'm going to do the exact same thing up here, and I'm going to read astrology. And I'm going to say, okay, what then do we need to sacrifice? We need to sacrifice, according to this, we're going to need to sacrifice, what is Aquarius? Aquarius is a water bearer. Okay, so are we going to sacrifice a man? Are we going to burn a man who has an urn pouring out water? Well, yes and no. Okay, down here they would have actually burnt the sheep, right? Burnt the bull. Okay, then you got Capricorn, because to finish the whole age out, you'd have to go to the end of Capricorn, which is 4,000 years out, just like they had to go 4,000 years out to get to the very end of the thing, the end of the cardinal sign, the third thing that solves all this. So what's Capricorn? Capricorn is the goat. Okay, so are we going to get out here and burn a literal goat? Well, I don't think so. But here's what I figure. We know that Jesus come at the end of Aries and the beginning of Pisces, the cusp right here. Okay, so he was the thing that sorted out the first two ages, the dispute between Gemini and Taurus, essentially, the two polarized ages. He sorted out the dispute between them. And that's what we've got here, is we've got a dispute between two polarized ages, Aquarius and Pisces. And we're going to have to go all the way to the end of the age over here, to the end of Capricorn and the beginning of Sagittarius, for our, essentially, Jesus 2, we'll call it. Or the goat. The goat of all goats, really. But the goat. Okay. The greatest of all time, the goat, right? So this guy out here is going to be, whatever this thing is, this understanding of sorts, is going to solve the dispute between this Aquarius and this Piscean age. Because down here, you had Gemini and Taurus was in a dispute over how you handled things. And then it took Aries, the cardinal sign, which was the third one, to solve the dispute between 1 and 2. Or the Jesus to come and solve the dispute, the problem that had been created here. So that's what you've got here, is you've got Pisces here, Aquarius here, and they're in a dispute, and completely polarized, and then you're going to have the third one up here to solve it. Okay, so what we've got to do is, they sacrifice bulls and sheep. Bulls for Taurus, but sheep for Aries. It was the ultimate sacrifice really was the sheep. So anyway, what are we going to do here? Well, we're going to sacrifice Aquarius. We're going to sacrifice, I believe it's the Aquarian mindset and mentality up until here. And then, but all at the same hand, we're going to sacrifice also the Capricornian goat understanding or mentality. Because down here they sacrifice bulls and sheep all the way through. They sacrifice sheep and bulls here mostly, and then but sheep also all the way through. So we've got to sacrifice Aquarian thinking, and also starting now we got to sacrifice Capricornian thinking. Okay, so that gets us up here into the third thing, which is Capricorn, which is a cardinal sign, which is essentially the third party to the first two, because these are polarized, and we're going to sacrifice the sheep, or I'm sorry, we're going to sacrifice the goat of Capricorn. The Capricornian thinking, essentially, is what I assume it is, because we're in the mind age now, essentially, and we're not sacrificing physical animals, we're sacrificing understanding and mentality. You know, that's a good Aquarian way of putting it for right now until I can think of something better, but that's probably pretty close. Because I'm trying to tell you about something that's 4,000 years out into the future here. You know, I know based on what this was, but I don't know just exactly how it's going to happen, but I got a fairly good idea based on this. So anyway, so I hope you all get what I'm saying, but you got Garden of Eden Condition 2, you got Jesus 2, and, you know, that here in between Aries and Taurus, you had there was Moses, roughly Moses or Abraham. So, you know, there's going to be a Moses guy. There'll probably be like a Aquarian Capricorn cast Moses dude about here. and then or some sort of understanding. Who knows what it'll be? It might not be a person. It might just be an understanding. It might be some sort of artificial intelligence for all I know. I don't know. But anyway, you know, and then you get out here to... so you go through the Moses, then you get into the age of the goat, which is the third party, and that third party has got to sort out the problem between Aquarius and Pisces, the polarized ages. Okay, so anyway, I hope you all get what I'm saying there, and then it'll restart over and go into Sagittarius. Okay, but let's just leave it here for now, because we want these 1, 2, 3 ages. We want to figure out where we're at. Aquarius, Pisces, Aquarius, and Capricorn is where we're in right now. So we've got this Aquarius mentality and the Capricornian mentality have to be sacrificed of a sorts right now. And I don't mean like the Piscean version of sacrifice or whatever, and I don't mean sacrificing actual goats. I just mean a sacrifice of understanding, sacrifice of mentality. So the way I got it figured is that, in my opinion, if you want to be proverbially under the sacrifice right now, then what you would have to do is you would have to get a Aquarian or Capricornian message of sorts. And in my opinion, I believe that's what I just told you. If you understand this message and understand that you need to get an Aquarian understanding, to get a Capricornian understanding, to solve ultimately a Capricornian understanding, to at the end of it, to solve the problems that we have now with the polarization between science and religion, then you have the sacrifice. You have until the actual age of Capricorn gets here. Then, because what they were doing down here was they were sacrificing sheep until the actual Jesus sheep could come. And he was the end of Aries, so he was the Aries age solved the first two ages, okay, because they were polarized. The third party, Aries age, solved these two, okay. So then up here, Capricorn is going to do the same thing. It's going to solve until the age of Capricorn gets here. We're in this kind of polarized situation here, but leaving one polar opposite to another. But when Capricorn gets here, it's the third party, and it will solve the polarization of the first two. So we know that we have eaten from this tree of knowledge of good and evil, and we've got a polarized condition right now. And we need a third party to solve the polarized condition of the Garden of Eden too. Okay, so you have to do that until Capricorn comes, you have to sacrifice a goat. Just like they had to sacrifice a sheep in place of the actual, the Jesus sheep, we're going to have to sacrifice a goat until the actual goat age gets here to sort out the polarization. So how you do that is you sacrifice, essentially, this message I'm preaching to you. This message I'm preaching to you, I thoroughly believe, is the actual sacrifice itself. It's the sacrifice until the Capricorn goat age gets here to sort all this out. The the third age gets here to sort out the two polarized ages, the Capricorn goat will sort all this out. Okay, but until then, until then back here, they had to sacrifice the sheep and the bull too, really. So you've got to sacrifice Aquarius too. But ultimately the goat, then, because down here it was ultimately the sheep was the final of the three. So up here the goat is the ultimate final of the three. Then you have to sacrifice a goat in between now and then. So how do you do that? It's probably all a mentality. So how you sacrifice a goat now, because you need to sacrifice a goat now essentially to have your sins covered, essentially, because what is sin now? Misunderstanding, essentially. It's a lack of understanding or a misunderstanding. So how do you get out from under sin or misunderstanding in this mind age of Aquarius? By sacrificing Aquarian thinking for one thing, and sacrificing the Capricornian goat, the understanding of Capricorn. So you have to sacrifice, ultimately, you have to sacrifice to get out from under this misunderstanding of these polarized ages. You have to sacrifice Capricornian thinking. That's what you have to do. Until it comes, you have to sacrifice it somehow. Until it actually gets here, until the Jesus 2 actually gets here, you've got to sacrifice something that is essentially the same as the Jesus. The sheep that they were burning up down there on the altar all those years was in place of and just as good as, until he got there, Jesus. So now you have to burn up a goat until the goat gets here. And if you burn up that goat, then it's just as good as if the goat is actually here. So my message here, I'm a Capricorn preaching this to you. So if you understand what I'm telling you here, then you are sacrificing the goat right now, because this is Capricornian thought process on these two polarized ages. So if you understand what I'm telling you, you are essentially sacrificing the goat. It's just an understanding. If you understand what I'm telling you, then you're not in a state of confusion of the polarization of Aquarius and Pisces. You see, it's done through, the sacrifice is now done through just simply understanding what's being said. And if you understand what the goat is telling you, then you are under the sacrifice. You're not in a state of misunderstanding of these polarized ages of Aquarius and Pisces. Okay, now, so anyway, let me tell you all this. Yeah, that's probably good for now, wife. If you want to, I'm just about done. I won't make you hold that thing much longer. But let me tell you all this. So you're under the sacrifice. If you're listening to what I'm talking about, then it's the same as if Adam and Eve went out there, because here's probably what you're going to have. It stands to reason, right, that what you're going to have is you're going to have a Cain and Abel. And Abel's going to have the right sacrifice, and Cain ain't going to have the right sacrifice. So Cain is not going to understand this, essentially, but Abel will. Okay, and Cain will slay Abel. So I would say that this is not going to be appreciated, and the Cain aspect will slay the Abel aspect of it. But then there'll be Seth, and then, it'll go on in the lineage of, or those who understand, essentially, will sacrifice the goat. Okay, so, I can't remember where I was going with that, but anyway. So, but you have to be sacrificed. You have to have the right sacrifice, just like after the Garden of Eden. Just imagine that we went through the Garden of Eden. The third coming message was the Garden of Eden. Now you got to read in Genesis 4, 5, 6 now, and you got to find out what did they do there, because we're beyond that now. Okay, we're not doing. This is not about the third coming anymore. We've already ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Those who would, those who will, or are, and you now have to have the sacrifice. Okay, so you got to eat that message of the goat. And as far as I can tell, this is it. Y'all might think I'm crazy. Y'all might think I'm trying to make myself out to be something, but I'm just one goat. There was many sheep that they sacrificed, right? So I'm just saying, but I'm saying that this message that I'm preaching to you is one of the many, but one was just as good as many. So this is it. This is the goat understanding. This is the third party understanding to the other two. Now let me get into the second part of this. Okay, folks, y'all need to listen to me. This is very serious. And I don't usually preach politics, but I might get into preaching a little bit of politics today. What we have is in our political systems out here, is we have a polarization between two polarized sides. Our country, they're always talking about how we're more polarized than ever. The Democrats on the far one side and the Republicans on the far other side, and the polarization gap is getting wider. Okay, well, that's what you've got here. That is a sign of the times, because that it only stands to reason that you'd have polarization right now, because I was talking about the polarization between Pisces and Aquarius. All the way from the Scientologist on the Aquarius side, all the way, or whoever, the scientists or the Scientologist or whoever, all the way to the church pastors down in the message in the Piscean side, in this cusp age that we're in right now. You have a vast polarization, so it stands to reason that politics must be a type of the ecclesiastical. Okay, what's going on in the ecclesiastical or ecclesiastical, non-ecclesiastical world, whatever you want to call it now. Okay, so there's a vast polarization between the Democrats and the Republicans, for example. And I'm going to tell y'all what's going on there. All this all runs over and over and over. You can make this anything. You can say Baptist, Pentecostals, William Branham. What was going on there was side one polarized side two and side three. William Branham was the third party, essentially. He came and sorted out the problem between Baptists and Pentecostals, because there was a Garden of Eden right there. It's all over the place. It just keeps going on over and over and over. It's just big cycles. Okay, so essentially, whenever they ate the message, when the Baptists started eating the message of Pentecostalism, then they had eaten the tree of the knowledge of good and evil right there. And then William Branham had to come and sort that out. So you've always got a 1, 2, and a 3. It's always a traditional, a progressive, and then the third party that comes and sorts it out. And that's what you got here. Pisces was the traditional viewpoint on everything. Aquarius is the progressive viewpoint on everything. And then Capricorn will be the third viewpoint, the third party, which will sort it all out. Okay? So that's what you've got here in politics right now. Look, the Baptists had a church creed. Then the Pentecostals come in and they had a church creed, essentially. Okay? And then William Branham came and said, you don't need church creeds, you just need to essentially go back to the beginning, kind of. That's kind of what Jesus did. He took us back to the beginning, right? That's what I was saying earlier. He took us back. We started over on a new 3 ages after Aries switched into Pisces. Then it started us back to the very beginning. The very beginning. We say the Garden of Eden's the beginning, but really, the beginning of Gemini would have been the very beginning. But the Garden of Eden was the beginning of Taurus and the ending of Gemini, so that's the beginning too. Okay, but nonetheless, to go back to the very, very beginning, you've got to get to the Jesus dude, the third party. Okay, or the Aries, the third party, or now the Capricorn, the third party. Okay, so anyway, but I'll try to not mess this up, make it too complicated. But the Baptists essentially had a church creed, then Garden of Eden condition. Then the Pentecostals had a church creed, and then William Branham came as the third party and sorted it all out and took them back to the very beginning. You know, turned the hearts of the children back to the fathers, whatever, blah, 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 whatever. Okay, so anyway. So what I'm saying is right now is you've got the exact same thing going on in politics right now and in the ecclesiastical. You have got this condition of complete polarization. I watched almost, I watched a good portion, because I am neither Democrat nor Republican. Really. In a sense, you might say I'm Democrat, but I'll have to explain that. But I just watch them both. I watched the Republican National Convention, and here's a few things that I took away from that. They were talking about that they had the Republican plan to solve our problems, because we got rampant inflation, we got all kinds of problems here, right? Okay. They were talking about the Republican plan to, I think it was called Project 2025 or something. They got cooked up there. It's some sort of plan to solve all of our problems. Okay, that is nothing but a denominational church creed. That is the Republican denominational church creed. The Republicans and Democrats are denominations, are nothing but political denominations. I can't really deal with anything anymore, because I'm beginning to, a while back I started to see that everything is just denominational. It doesn't matter whether you're doing ecclesiastical, you're doing politics, you're watching football and basketball. It's nothing but just denominations. If West Virginia is playing Ohio State or something in football, it's just denominations. Is all that is. Okay. So anyway, let's just say I'm non-denominational when it comes to college football now, if anybody listens to this. But and I am non-denominational whenever it comes to politics. Okay. So, but that doesn't mean that I don't still watch politics and enjoy it, in a sense. And it wouldn't mean that I couldn't sit down and maybe watch a college football game and enjoy it to some degree. If I thought it were real, which I don't really necessarily think that these things are entirely happening freely, let's say. But, there's a lot. It's like you take football, for example. And there's a lot of money involved in that. So, how much of it's really real, that's a good question. Let's just say that we know that games have been influenced for years and years and years. This is nothing new, and the same thing for politics. Politics is influenced by, it's not just run freely, politics is influenced by a lot of money, You got a lot of donors, and that, it's well known. Okay, so I'm not saying these things are exactly running freely. They've got a lot of outside influence. But nonetheless, and it's even the ecclesiastical was the same way, churches, but there was a lot of money behind it, So anyway, but that's just how it is. So, but anyway, but you've got the Republicans. They got this church creed idea. Essentially, they got this Republican plan. I was reading in between the lines of what they were saying, and I'm like, okay, well, they get on there and they're like, well, we got all this inflation problem and all this and that, and they're like, and I'm okay. Well, that sounds pretty good. We need to do something about that. We need to do something about the housing crisis and where nobody can afford a house. And okay, you all are doing good on hitting the talking points. Okay, cool. And then they're like, and we got this great Republican plan to solve all of it. Okay, baloney. That's nothing but the political version of ecclesiastical church creed is all it is, because the original plan is the only plan that's going to come close to solving it. A Republican church creed is not going to solve it. A Democrat church creed is not going to solve it. A Democrat Party plan is not going to solve it. A Republican Party plan is not going to solve it. You have to have the third party to take it essentially back to the beginning. It's the only way you're going to get it solved. And as far as I can tell, that guy is, if you want a political figure right now, that guy is Robert Kennedy Jr. Okay? Robert Kennedy Jr. is the third party, essentially. He is an independent who broke off from the Democrats, so he's kind of a Democrat, and that's what I'm saying. I'm kind of a Democrat, but an independent, really. I was watching a Robert Kennedy commercial the other day, or last night, and he was talking about how he wanted to make a unity party. He wanted to take Republicans, Democrats, Libertarians, Green Party, everybody, and make a unity party out of it. And take all the good ideas of each and do that, essentially. Or basically, and as he put it, he said, and make the first unity party that we've had since George Washington. Or to go back to the beginning, because who was our first president, wifey?
George Washington.
George Washington, that's right. So that means you go back to the beginning, right? Okay. Kathy passed her civics test with flying colors whenever she got her citizenship. She's now a U.S. citizen, so I don't think she missed a question, so she would know who our first president was. So RFK is trying to take us back to the beginning, and he's a constitutionalist. He's trying to take us back to the original constitutional way of doing things. Okay, you can't solve our problems with a Republican church creed or a Democrat church creed. It ain't gonna work. Okay, it just ain't gonna work. You have to go back to the beginning. You have to go back to the original constitutional liberties that allow man to be able to, bring himself out, essentially, give him the freedom to bring himself out to, and not be stifled under these church creeds of, crony capitalism and American-style socialism, essentially. Those aren't going to work. That's not how it works. Those are not going to create the type of life that you know, that is needed here to make this work, you know, or to make it work like it can. So you need a third party, just like in the ecclesiastical there. I showed that you needed Aries as the third party to solve the polarized condition of Gemini and Taurus, and you're going to need Capricorn to solve the polarized condition of Pisces and Aquarius. Just in politics, you need a third party guy to solve the polarized condition of the Republicans and Democrats. Okay, that's just short and simple. I don't know how else to say it. And so anyway, some of the man, I was watching that Republican convention, and man, it's like that's like a rock. I mean, it really was a rock concert. They had Kid Rock and everything there, but it's like a rock show. It's like a bunch of get up. It's like William Branham used to say about the churches. It was just a bunch of get up, and it wasn't really. It didn't have the real truth to it. It didn't have the real constitutional beginnings concept to it. It's just a bunch of show, and it's a big show, and they're trying to make their people look great, and that's how, and they got the answer, and it's just that's not it. That is absolutely not it. It's just like you go to a Baptist or Pentecostal church today. They try to get in there and get you to have a good time and have a big show, and that's what they do to try to get you to come in there and pay them tithes. It's the same thing. The Republicans and Democrats are like, the Democrats getting ready to have the DNC, the Democratic National Convention. Well, I'll watch that too. Okay, but the whole point is, probably, but the whole point is that it's all a big show. It's all to get you to donate to their their political denomination, essentially, and that's all it was. That's all it was to go to these churches. And it's the same thing here. You got these, I've been preaching this message for a long time, this cuss message, and I've been saying, hey, you've got all these, backwards leaning, everybody from the message up to a lot of people, even within, right up to the third coming, essentially, and dang near within the third coming, that are your, backwards kind of thinking folk, in a sense. They think back. They got a lot of opinions that are traditional thought opinions on things, and then you've got from the third coming on up. Then you've got everybody with these progressive opinions on things, essentially, and they no different than Democrats and Republicans. It's the same thing over again. It's all they want is essentially, your enthusiasm of one sort or another, and one wants money and one wants enthusiasm, and they probably want money too, but some of them. But anyway, on the other side. So anyway, it's all just a big get up. It's not gonna work. But let me just say this. Whenever I said, well, I'm a bit of a Democrat earlier. Well, I am a bit of a third coming person. Obviously, I'm a third coming person. I did eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So I'm a bit of a Democrat. Or a bit of a progressive in terms of the ecclesiastical, but that's exactly what Robert Kennedy is. The guy I'm telling you about here. That's the political type of all this. He was a Democrat. He was a progressive. He had essentially eaten from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Because when you eat the Democrat message, you've eaten from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, or basically you're not blissfully ignorant of all the economic bullcrap that the Republicans are telling you. Okay, now you all can, boy, this is probably going to cause a stink, but I guess I'm going to cause a stink today. Okay, the Republicans, they have this idea, it's like, man, it's hard to put. Okay, basically it's like this. Theoretically, the Republicans are closer to the original Constitution, but that's only really what they tell you, just to get you to do what they want you to believe, what they want you to believe. It's really, they're a church creed. They're not really constitutionalists. They're not really free market, really. They want you to believe they're free market, but they're really crony capitalists is what they are. They're not pure capitalists. They're crony capitalists. Okay? So, and that's basically what you had with the message people. They were a bunch of crony capitalists. like the cattle barons. I always think of the cattle barons whenever I think of the Republicans. The cattle barons run the town. They were yeah, it's true. They were birthing a lot of cows, and they were producing things, and okay, but they also run the town, and that's pretty much what you got with them. You got cattle barons trying to run the town. You got corporations trying to run the town essentially. Then, and I'm not saying the other side doesn't have a lot of that going on too, but because they do, because that's exactly what I was just saying, is that the corporations have filtered into the other side. It's all a big mess essentially, and so anyway, and then you got the other side of it, which is the Democrats, which is the progressive side, and once you begin to eat what used to be the old Democrat message of labor unions and support for labor unions, because the labor union was in contrast to the cattle baron Republican corporate guys that were just thought that a man was worth less than a mule, and that's how they treated him, and wouldn't pay nobody nothing. And then so the labor unions got together and formed the collective bargaining right to bargain for collectively for wages, for better wages and better working conditions against essentially what was the Republicans. If you know history, this is how it went, because the Republicans were the corporate guys, at least historically, although now it's kind of all muddled up a little bit more, but anyway, nonetheless, historically that was how it was. And so you had labor unions against the corporate guys. Okay, so the labor unions was the Democrats. So the labor unions was basically if you'd eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil in terms of politics, because you form a labor union and you collectively bargain rights meant that you had the power to battle for wages, or essentially you were a god, you were a corporation all to your own self, and et cetera, et cetera. So that's what's going on. That's what was going on. Now, a little bit different nowadays, but still to some degree that's kind of still the case. So if you ate from the labor union side of it, then you had, or the old school democratic message side of it, then you had eaten from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So in that regard, yes, I'm a Democrat. However, the independent, you have to go back. See, you go from one to one, and then you go back. You go from one polarized side to the other, and then you go back. That's what I was saying. We go from Pisces to Aquarius to Capricorn. Third party. So you have to go from one side to the other polarized side, and then back to the third party to get it all sorted out again. So you've got to go essentially be Republican, then Democrat, then back to the independent essentially. And that's exactly what Robert Kennedy did. He went from Democrat to independent. So you've got to go back to independent. Okay? You've got to go, what I'm saying is you've got to go from the second coming mentality to the third coming mentality, then back to the independent mentality. You have to go even farther. Everybody's saying, oh, the third coming, we're all third coming now. Okay, yeah, well, good, I'm third coming too. But you've got to go a step further to put it back. You've got to go independent now. You can't be second coming, you can't be third coming. You've got to go back to the independent, is how it works. This is the nature of how things work, folks. I've said this several times and we'll say it again. In ancient Israel, how it worked was you had the kingdom of Judah and the kingdom of Israel. Okay, Judah was the conservative traditionalists, basically our modern day Republicans. Okay, and then Israel split away from them, and Israel said, because Judah said, well, you have to be a Levite to be a priest, and you can only worship in Jerusalem. And Israel said, nah, we won't have this. We're going to go progressive. Well, you can worship anywhere, and you can anybody can be a priest. You don't have to just be a Levite. Essentially, progressive ideology. Okay, all right, and so in Democrats in modern terms, essentially, it's everybody equal footing. Essentially, it wasn't just a traditional one tribe that was doing all this, right? So anyway, Democrat ideology. Okay. Then in ancient Israel, what happened was Elijah the prophet split essentially from the king of Israel and went independent. But he was an Israelite. He was not a Republican. Everybody thinks to me, everybody seems to think that they're waiting on some Republican savior. They're looking for some traditional Republican savior that's going to save them, you know. And it's just not. It's not according to the story. The savior actually came from the Democratic Party, essentially. He came from the Progressive Party and went independent. So you should be, if anybody's looking for a savior of sorts in the ecclesiastical or the political, then they should be looking for a guy who was third coming and went independent, or who was a Democrat and went independent. That's what you should be looking for. You should be looking. Don't look for a Republican savior. Don't look for some traditional message person that's going to rise up and save everybody. That ain't going to happen. Don't look for some Democrat to rise up and within the Democratic Party and save everybody. Don't look for no third coming person at this point to save everybody from here, to help everybody with their understanding. It ain't going to happen. You've got to have somebody to come out of the third coming progressive way of looking at things and go independent and take it back to the beginning and pull the William Branham trick and to pull the Aries trick and to pull the Capricorn trick. You've got to have the third party to the first two. That's the way you have to do it. It always starts, you start off as a traditional Christian essentially, then you go to the Enlightenment aspect of it, the third coming aspect of it, and then you got to go back out of that and go to the original at the end of the age of the cardinal age. You have to have this third aspect, the cardinal aspect, the third party. That's what the sacrifice is. And I'm telling y'all right now, let me put it in West Virginia terms. I'm telling you folks right now that sacrifice right now in the in the political is absolutely Robert Kennedy Jr. He is the sacrifice right now of the ecclesiastical, of the political realm, of the essentially Capricorn goat mentality to what you got now with this or the independent mentality to the polarized Democrats and Republicans. And this message that I'm preaching to you in the ecclesiastical, until I hear somebody else preaching this, until I hear somebody that can do better than this, that can preach it better than this, that can make it more clear than this, until that day comes, I firmly believe that this, what you're hearing today on this message, is the modern sacrifice of the third party to the second coming, to the church ages people, and to the third coming side of it, and on up, and all that entails. This message that you've heard today is the sacrifice of the Capricorn sacrifice and thought process, which clears all that up. I firmly believe that. And so anyway, we have to have a sacrifice. We have to. The third coming did not created some problems and solved some other ones. You know, polarization. Now we got polarization. We got to have a third party here, and this message is the third party. What I'm telling you is the third party. I am neither second coming nor am I third coming, but I was third coming. Robert Kennedy is neither Democrat nor Republican, but he was a Democrat. But now he's independent, and that's exactly what I am. I am neither second coming nor third coming. I am independent, but I was third coming. That is true. So, but I'm now an independent. I am not third coming now, but I am happy to. Just like Robert Kennedy said, he wanted to have a unity government. He wanted to have Republicans, Democrats, Libertarians, Greens, everybody. And that's the way I feel about it. The second coming had some good ideas. The third coming has some good ideas. I would put them all. I would put them all in my cabinet, let's say. If I had a cabinet, if I were to get elected president of the ecclesiastical realm, essentially, then my cabinet or my mindset has second coming ideas, traditional ideas, and third coming ideas or progressive ideas ecclesiastically put all together, and other things, other ideas that are outside of even those all put together. So So I guess you might say I'm running for president of the ecclesiastical realm. I'm throwing my hat in the ring. I'm running for president of the ecclesiastical realm. And I'm not running on the ticket of second coming, and I'm not running on the ticket of third coming. I'm running on the ticket of the independent message of the ecclesiastical realm as it stands in the post-third coming world. In the Aquarius, the age of the cusp of Pisces and Aquarius, I am running as independent. I am running as independent as for president of the ecclesiastical realm, you might say. My thought process is running as the through the preaching of this message. However you want to look at that. So, but my hat's in the ring, and I'm just polling. I guess at this point, just barely good enough to get on the debate stage, maybe not. So, and that's the way it is right now. I suppose if there's probably very few people listening, if anybody, and I'm just barely on the fringe. I'm just like Robert Kennedy. He does all this campaign stuff. They won't hardly let him on TV much here and there, but he's on YouTube. That's where he's putting his commercials out. And that's where I'm at. I'm on YouTube. I'm putting my commercials out on YouTube. I'm just hoping somebody will be watching YouTube and see this and get this understanding. And that's what he's doing. He's putting these commercials out on YouTube, and he's just hoping somebody will see it and understand it, and will vote for him. And that's what I want you to vote for his ideas, and that's what I want you all to do. I want you all to see. I want to put it out there and let you have a chance to see it, and hopefully you will vote for it. That's the idea. That's we're all essentially ecclesiastical politicians here. I mean, that's what a person that preaches, a preacher, to put it in Piscean terms. That's what a preacher is a ecclesiastical politician. That's what we've always been. So but anyway, that's my pitch for president for today. And okay, so see y'all later.